Hello, my name's Josh. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I've recently been through a divorce. Thanks for coming back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk about a topic that is surprisingly controversial, and that is the topic of dating post-divorce. It is something that, when I was going through my divorce, I thought wouldn't be a controversial topic, but boy, did I learn otherwise. So I'd like to just discuss a couple items from that. At least my view on it and kind of what I've gleaned in my time. First, I have heard people say when is it appropriate to date again? I've heard people say as soon as you ask for the divorce, you're free to date. As soon as you ask for it. Doesn't matter if it's happened or not. As soon as it's been asked for, you can date. I definitely don't agree with that. There are some of our brothers and sisters of other Christian faiths who believe that if you get divorced, that unless it was because of adultery, you are committing adultery by getting married again and dating and everything else that goes with that. And they have a scripture or two from the New Testament that they use to justify that. And I don't agree with that either. I think that's a little bit extreme on the other side. So the question is, when is it appropriate to date? Now, I am firmly in the camp of you do not date until the divorce is final. And I know that can be hard for people. I mean, my divorce took 18 months. And some people, divorces can take a significantly longer time even than that to be finalized. And my heart really feels for those people. But I just believe that when we get married, we make vows of chastity and fidelity. And the fidelity portion of that is to the person, but also to the covenant that we have made with that person. And even if they decide not to keep their end of that bargain, I'm going to keep my end, or at least that was my view when I was married, is that I was going to keep my end of the bargain until that was legally finalized. And that's controversial, unfortunately. There's a lot of people who don't believe that at all. Now, I hear a lot of excuses of, oh, well, my divorce, it's been 3 years, it's been 5 years, it's been 2 years, whatever the case may be. I just, in my mind, it doesn't matter. In my mind, you're married until you're not married. So, and also in my mind, there's not a lot that separates the argument of, well, once I asked for the divorce, I was free to date, till, well, it's been 2 years we've been separated, so now I can date. Like, why is time the distinguishing factor if you're still married? It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, I'm not saying this to ridicule anyone or to condemn anyone. Ultimately, we have to face the consequences of our own decisions, good, bad, or indifferent. And so this is at least just the way that I decided to do things. And I mean, frankly, was there an opportunity to date in between the divorce process starting and being finalized? Was there an opportunity for me? Yeah, but my choice was no. I'm married, and I'm married until I'm not married. Part of that was, in my own mind, although I was pretty sure that divorce was happening, especially towards the end I didn't see a way of going back. I always had in my mind the sliver there of, if the Lord has a miracle to perform, I want to allow that. I want to give space for that. And me pursuing someone else actually closes that gap. That amount of space there. And so, and I know people who've had miracles, who have, last moment, about to sign divorce papers, and something happens and it changes for them. And although I didn't see that, to be honest with you, when I was going through the divorce, I didn't see that happening. I needed to at least to leave that open in case the Lord decided to make that happen. So, now it didn't, but I wanted to make sure that I was at least doing my part to allow that to happen if it could. Now, so the next question is, when is it appropriate to date, let's say post divorce? Now, I think this is where it's worth looking at a couple of statistics. I have not seen any good solid statistics on that says when it's a good time to date after your marriage. There's a lot of opinions on it. I have seen very little, if any, data to back those opinions up. So on timelines to wait. But I looked up divorce statistics actually again a couple months ago. First marriages in the United States, approximately 40%, a little more than 40% of first marriages fail in the US right now. 67% of second marriages fail, 75% of third marriages fail. So now I'm in the camp when I get remarried, whenever that occurs, that it's 75% likely, 67% likely to occur. So what can I do? Because I don't want to be part of that statistic. So what can I do to prevent myself from becoming that statistic? Well, frankly, I've talked to quite a few people who've been married and divorced multiple times. And there tends to be one common thread that I hear as I've talked to these people, which is I rushed too quickly into a relationship after my marriage, and we rushed our relationship too much while we were courting and dating. So there tends to be at least a warning there that for myself, I need to make sure that I'm taking the appropriate amount of time, whatever that amount of time is, in order to get into a relationship again. And then when I get into that relationship, it's probably wise that I don't rush it either. That I take my time with that relationship. And there is a lot of complications. I have children. I assume the person that I marry in the future will have children. There's a lot of complications that go into that have to make that new blended family work if we decide to do that. And so what that means for me is it's incumbent on me to actively work on my healing from my divorce, to actively work on becoming the best version of myself so that I can bring that version of myself to my next marriage, which means I need to bring as little baggage as I can. Now, obviously there's certain baggage that's going to come no matter what, but I can work to at least minimize the extra baggage there, and I do that by healing. So, when people have asked me what kind of time frames I think people should wait, I don't tend to give time frames. I just say, you need to make sure you have really worked on your healing and you have really moved beyond that marriage. For me, a key indicator for that would be, am I still bitter and angry towards my former spouse? Is there any bitter or anger towards them? Or is there any leftover unresolved hurt or bitterness from the divorce itself? Am I comparing anyone I go on dates with to my former spouse? Those things are all things that, to me, I need to be past if I'm going to get into another relationship. Now, I will say this, and this is just this is all my view on things, so don't take any of this as gospel truth, because the truth is, I don't think there is any. I think the real gospel truth is, if you're going to date, you need to really have some conversations with the Lord about it, one. And two, I would probably talk to a counselor. I'd get a counselor. I always encourage people to get counseling and really talk to a counselor about it. Someone who's objectively looking at you from a third-party view and saying, you know what, you've really done a lot of healing here. I think you're in a position where you are emotionally healthy enough to make those decisions. Because ultimately, that's what it boils down to. Are we emotionally healthy enough to attract another healthy person to us? Because one thing I've heard is healthy attracts healthy and unhealthy attracts unhealthy. So if we are still unhealthy emotionally, we're going to attract unhealthy to us. And that's just a disaster for a new relationship. Now, one little caveat that I've kind of discovered since my divorce has occurred, I think sometimes we take dating really seriously. And I don't know that it always has to be that way. What I mean by that is, You can go on a date with someone just as like friends, just to have a good time, just to say, hey, I want to try this new restaurant out. I'm going to call so-and-so up and see if they want to go with me. And just to try out a new restaurant. Or maybe you're in the mood, it's a cold day outside and you want some hot chocolate. Hey, let's meet at Starbucks and get a hot chocolate and just chat for a while. You can have those kind of informal, they're dates, but they're not really trying to make love connections per se or seeking a relationship out. And I think as long as people are open about, I'm not really seeking a relationship other than just to get to know you better and you can get to know me better and we're friends. Could that eventually turn into something? Sure. But that's not the intention of the date. Then there's also dating, which is much more serious, which is I am interested in you and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a relationship with you. That's a much more serious kind of dating. But I think oftentimes, and maybe it's unfortunate that we don't have different words for those things. When we think of dating, we think of intentionally pursuing for a relationship. And that's what you really have to understand and know is, are you in a position to have a relationship with someone else? I can tell you that for myself, I'm not. I'm not in that position yet. I know I'm not. I feel it that I'm not. And I assume someday that feeling will change. And that feeling isn't like emotions, because emotions can be fickle. It's kind of a deep inside me, I know I am not ready yet. So I honor that and just say, I'm fine for now. And frankly, like I've said in other videos, I kind of like being single right now, and I don't feel the need to change that. I have other focuses that I think are important for me right now. One last piece of advice. I read a book about dating that I thought was pretty good. And he mentioned in this book, before you get into the dating world, writing down your 5 and 5. And it was 5 must-haves for your next spouse, and then 5 kind of deal killers for your next spouse. And they can be anything. It could be, good with children, I'm attracted to them, it has integrity, is hardworking, whatever those 5 are. Those could be you're the 5 things for you that are super important for your next spouse to have. And then you're going to have your 5 deal killers, which are, I feel like they're lying to me. Or actually I should say you've caught them lying to you. Could be, disrespectful to people. Could be any number of things. But you have to write those before you start dating, because that as you start dating, you don't want to shift that 5 and 5. You don't want to shift it to accommodate someone. You want to only shift it. Maybe if you're out of a relationship, you may say, well, this isn't as important to me as I thought it was, so I'm going to replace it with something else. But you never accommodate that 5 and 5 to make it so someone else matches it, because that means you're probably going to make a bad decision. Anyway, something I recently read I thought was a good idea, and I've started writing down what are my 5 and 5. So when the day comes that I'm seeking a relationship, I'll hopefully be able to make a good and healthy choice to prevent myself from becoming part of that 67% that fail at the second time. Anyways, my name's Josh. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This channel is not endorsed by the church. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I'm just someone who's been through a divorce, learning some lessons along the way, and hopefully they help you too. Thanks.